All right, good afternoon. Thanks for coming to today's property tax workshop for the city of Sebastian. As we start we're gonna go through a presentation. At the end of the presentation, we'll have an opportunity that you all can ask questions. My name is Brian Benton, I'm the city manager. You can ask any question you want to about property tax. If there's something else you want to discuss, we can discuss it afterwards. During the question and answer session, we will have a microphone. We got a staff member that will bring it around. I just ask for the record, because we are keeping minutes, that you state your name, and then you can proceed with asking any question that you would like to ask. I do want to recognize a couple people in the audience. We've got Mayor Fred Jones here today, and we've also got Mr. Lance Lunsford, who is the president of the Indian River County Taxpayers Association as well. So thank you for coming, Lance. We appreciate it. All right, we'll get started with the presentation. So a little overview of what we're hoping to go through today. What are property taxes and how are they generated? What do property taxes fund within the city of Sebastian? So I know a lot of the information that gets out there a lot of it is statewide. It's generalized state numbers, state percentages. We want to ensure that our residents get information that is very specific to Sebastian and how it would affect each resident that we have. Homestead versus non-homestead home impact regarding this, and potential alternatives to property taxes. So why host this workshop and why host it now? And we'll go through this as we start to go through one of the House Joint Resolutions, which is a constitutional amendment that has passed the House of Representatives within the state. We'll get that far, and we'll go through that a little bit later. However, at a certain point, once the ballot language is drafted, we are no longer allowed to expend taxpayer dollars to provide any input for or against any ballot referendum measure. So at that point, we felt like it was important to try to get this information out initially so that taxpayers have as much information as they can when they go to the ballot if a measure makes it that far and gets to the ballot on November. So there's lots of discussion regarding property taxes and the potential elimination. State legislation is discussing property tax elimination or reduction bills. House Joint Resolution passed the Florida House on February 19th, which was last Thursday, which proposes the elimination of all non-school ad valorem taxes. If bills are passed, then they will be placed on the ballot for voters to decide. And the city's goal is to provide factual information to our residents regarding the usage of property taxes. So what are property taxes? Property taxes are local ad valorem, which means value-based, taxes on real property and commercial property within the city of Sebastian. A typical way to calculate the number is utilizing what's known as a millage rate. And on the next slide, we'll go through how your millage rate and how your entire property taxes is decided. But your millage rate is set by City Council. City Council, we have a citizen budget advisory committee that reviews our budget through a lengthy process over many months as city staff are working to formulate the budget. Those are all public meetings. That committee is residents within the city. They have to live here, and they are appointed as members of that committee. Then we also have public workshops that are budget specific that take place June, July, that are open to the public as well. 2 full days of going through every individual department, the department director and myself and our finance director. We sit down at a table with council and we review every single line item within that budget, open and transparent. If you want to go back and look at last year's budget workshops, those are available on YouTube, on Facebook, through the city's website. You can see those from last year as well and really dive into more specifics within each individual department. Properties are assessed annually by the county property appraiser. Taxes are collected annually by the county property tax collector. That's who sends you out the property tax notices. Property taxes are stable and predictable revenue source for the city when preparing the annual budget, and it's the primary local funding source for general fund operations. So how property taxes are calculated? The property tax formula begins with a just market value, less state increase caps, which 3% for Save Our Homes for homestead property or 10% non-homestead. So your just market value is going to be less than what your market value is when you go to sell your property, because you have had caps that have accrued over the years that have limited the increase that can be utilized for your property tax calculation specifically. This equals your assessed value. Then you have exemptions. One that's known is if you're homestead, you get a $50,000 tax exemption. That's a known homestead exemption. That is then deducted from your assessed value. There are additional exemptions that people can qualify for that could take those exemptions all the way up to a 100% exemption for some disabled veterans, quadriplegics, and some of the other of that such. That then gives us your taxable value, which is then multiplied by what is established by City Council as your millage rate. So to give you an example on the screen, 1 mil, which is your millage rate, we consider it 1 mil, is $1 per $1,000 of taxable value. Now to be clear, the city's millage rate is 3.4455. So you would take 3.4455 times or equals $1 per every $1,000 of property tax value, and that equals your property taxes owed to the city of Sebastian. So homestead versus non-homestead properties. Big difference when it comes to property taxes and how those are identified. Homesteaded properties you're identified as your primary Florida residence. You can only qualify for one, even if you own multiple properties within the state. You receive up to a $50,000 exemption. And once again, Save Our Homes caps your assessment growth on your just market value to 3% annually. Non-homestead properties, these are your renters. They're the people, when I say renters, they're the people that maybe live in apartments or live in duplexes or live in homes that they are renting from a landlord. Second homes or third homes or however many homes people may have. And then commercial property. So there are a few exemptions on commercial property that could qualify under homestead, but that's very slim and those aren't that important. So main non-homestead are rentals, second homes, and commercial. No homestead exemption exists for these properties, and their just market value is capped at an increase of 10%, max increase of 10% annually to their values. So when we talk about your property tax bill, what's really the breakdown? Everybody gets your property tax bill and you immediately say, man, I pay so much money to the city of Sebastian because you live in the city. Well, just to provide you some details of how that tax breakdown really takes place is shown in this dollar bill here, so that we show the breakdown of the taxing authority that's on your tax bill. Indian River County, their total levy on your tax bill includes their county millage rate, and then they also have an emergency services district, which in full transparency does provide fire rescue to the city of Sebastian. We do not have our own fire rescue. It's offered by the county, so that is included as a service to the city of Sebastian. That equals 36.1 cents of every dollar in property taxes that you pay ad valorem. Indian River County School District gets 34.8 cents of every dollar that you pay in property taxes. The city of Sebastian, we receive 20.8 cents, roughly 21 cents of every dollar that you pay in taxes. So 20% of what you pay goes to the city to fund, maintain, and operate the services that you expect from the city. Hospital District receives 4.6 cents per dollar. And in other taxing districts, you've got mosquito control, you've got water management districts, and there's a few others that are thrown in there. They collectively get 3.7 cents of every dollar. So some specific considerations when it comes to the city of Sebastian and why, and a few of these slides will continue to build upon this, that one size doesn't fit all. When you talk about property taxes and homestead and how that would affect, you generally hear numbers thrown out across the state of an average number. In Sebastian, we're a little bit different. well, quite a bit different when you look at the numbers. Your assessment caps have caused assessed value to be reduced to only 71.87% of the market value. So what you're paying in property taxes based on the value of your home, you're only paying property taxes on the value of that home at about 71, 72% on an average scale across the city. This means that Save Our Homes has worked in reducing property taxes. It has kept that number lower than what the value of your home is as we use it for property taxes. 15.25% of assessed value is homesteaded versus a statewide average of a little bit over 5%. This means that the assessed value, the assessed total value of property within the city of Sebastian, 15.25% of that is considered homesteaded, where the state average is only 5%. We are in the top 20 states, or top 20 cities in the state of Florida out of 411 cities. We are top 20 in this category, which is a negative. It's been done on purpose. Residents moved to Sebastian because of the small, quaint fishing village that we have here. There's not a lot of commercial, and it has been a residential community on purpose. That's what the residents have wanted. And this is the quality of life that is expected in Sebastian. I'm sorry? No, what this is showing is that out of your assessed value, the total property taxes collected from homesteaded is about 15% of that, whereas your standard typical Florida city is only about 5%. And many cities are less than 1% across the state. So it doesn't necessarily take into account that $50,000 or $25,000 exemption that you're mentioning. And the last point, I just mentioned it, small commercial base within the city. Like I said, that's been done on purpose, and residents have come to expect a specific quality of life within the city. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a proposed constitutional amendment, which is House Joint Resolution 203. It has passed the House floor. It has now been sent over to the Senate. Just for informational purposes, the way these things work and bills work through the legislature is that the Senate and the House both must pass the same language in the bill or the constitutional amendment. It would then go to the governor for his signature. In this instance, if that happens, it then gets placed on the ballot for November because the voters will have to decide on this for any constitutional amendments that take place. Like I said, it's passed the House. It's currently in the Senate. They have not really discussed it at this point, so we're not really sure of what's going to happen in the Senate. The Senate can agree to it as presented. They can make amendments and send it back to the House, and it can go back and forth as long as it takes. The session ends in, I think, 13 days. However, they can go into a special session if it takes longer. So the impact specifically on Sebastian, the city estimates collection of ad valorem taxes in fiscal year 26, which is current fiscal year, to be $8,393,178. Total properties in the city of Sebastian is 14,540. Out of that, homestead properties account for 64% of our properties within the city of Sebastian. A little bit over 9,000 properties. Non-homesteaded properties account for 36%, a little over 5,200 properties. And then when you look at it in dollar figures, because that is how it will shake out with the elimination, homesteaded properties make up 57% of the ad valorem taxes that are collected by the city. Non-homestead makes up 43% of the total collected in ad valorem taxes. The city's general fund, based on current proposed House Joint Resolution, would see a reduction in revenues of $4,756,309, which is equal to 24% of the annual general fund revenue. And I know you have a question right now. Jason, do you have the mic? Can you let her ask a question?
Kimberly Warren, Finance Director from City of Fellsmere. Isn't that phased in over a certain number of years with this bill?
It is not. This House Joint Resolution, when it was presented on the House floor, the constitutional amendment at that time was, as you just stated, it was $100,000 a year increase, so it would compound itself. Year one is $100,000. Year two would be a $200,000 exemption on property taxes through 10 years, and then at 10 years it would completely eliminate it. However, when it made it to the House floor, there was a lot of discussion and an amendment was filed. That amendment on the House floor was an immediate elimination of all homestead property taxes effective January 1st of 2027. So the bill, you're correct, the bill in its original state was over time. However, it was amended on the House floor. So that is equal to 24% of the annual general fund revenue. Now here's where it gets a little bit interesting in regards to, well, 24% of your general fund revenue, which is $19.88 million is our general fund total, somewhere in that range. It's only 24% of it. However, the bill also requires that we continue to fund, operate public safety, which is our police department, at its current levels. That is about $9 million. So that immediately takes $19 million, takes it down to $10 million. So now everything else, and you'll see in here, I'll go through the rest of the departments that we have that fall underneath general fund. We now have $10 million to fund those in today's budget. If we were to lose $4.7 million of that $10 million, we're now down to roughly half of the $10 million, so a little over $5 million left to fund all of the rest of the departments in the city. So I just want to pay close attention to that number because there's some differing factors. It's not just 24% of general fund. It's really 24% of what's left over in general fund after we fund our police department. The city's homestead property percentage of 64% is almost double the state average. The state average, which is spoken many times, it's somewhere in the 30 to 35%, the number that's thrown out there. And we are at 64%. And the 57% of property tax revenue is over 20 percentage points higher than the state average of 36%. Yes, ma'am.
They also take off the schools. I remember they had schools on there. Did they take that off also?
So the school, thank you for clarifying that. The school, this is all non-school ad valorem taxes. So you would still pay school taxes as you currently do. So when I go back to the slide, the 34.8 cent, that would still maintain with this House Joint Resolution. It does not touch funding for schools. So this bar graph kind of shows you a little bit of an image of how this really affects the city. What you can see on the first bar graph, and I'll go through specific percentages in a pie graph here shortly, but this bar graph shows expenditures by department. The big orange slice of that bar, that is what funds our police department in the city of Sebastian. Everything below that is a different department, public works, parks and recreation, all of those items. The second bar is revenues. So here in the city of Sebastian, and everyone pretty much across the state functions this way, we establish a balanced budget and it gets approved in conjunction with our millage rate in September. All of that passes through city council through multiple public opportunities to see the budget and the establishment of the millage rate. And then when you get to the third bar, that shows the complete elimination of homestead property taxes within the city of Sebastian. So we go from a $19.8 million budget down to $4.7 million less, or 15.1, somewhere in that range. So what do property taxes fund for Sebastian residents? Our police department. Police department, that includes our road patrol, it includes our detective unit, our SWAT team, all of our operations that take place on a daily basis. It includes our dispatch, And it also, you'll see down here listed a little later, code enforcement, that falls underneath the realm of the police department as well, but it is a separate line item within our budget. Public Works, that's all of your roads, bridges, and maintenance, garage and fleet, sidewalks, and engineering, all of these things. When you call in and submit a public records or a citizen request, that funnels through our Public Works Department, and they are the ones that immediately get out there to assist our residents and address the concerns. Information technology and security, this broadcast here today, this is through our IT department. They showcase, we broadcast every single public meeting that we have in the city. They also handle cybersecurity through all of our computers, documents, all of our software, our police software that we have to have, CAD, RMS, to meet all of the state and federal guidelines that we have to meet in our police department. That all goes through information technology and cybersecurity. Parks and recreation. For the size of Sebastian, we have a lot of parks. We have 23 of them. I can guarantee that every single day, for the most part, that you ride from your house, you pass at least one of our parks. We have many parks throughout the city. And so general fund funds Parks and Recreation, which is daily maintenance of all of our parks, recreation programs. We offer programs from youth programs and special events all the way up to seniors. We have a senior center right next door that receives general fund funding to assist them. It also assists with some special events, and we support some of our larger special events that take place within the city. Public facilities, this handles all of our park restroom buildings, our police department, city hall. We have a public works department and a public works compound out near the airport. All of those fall underneath public facilities. Our finance department handles our day-to-day finances in the city, our investments, our procurement. That's very important to ensure that we're getting the best price for any services or goods that we're trying to acquire for use within the city. Planning and zoning, this is our community development department. They handle and operate and oversee every single development that comes into the city, every application that comes in, whether it's a fence or a driveway or an addition to your home, a new business, any of those things go through our community development department. Code enforcement, as I mentioned earlier, they handle all of our code issues. They maintain the quality of life and the look that we expect that here in Sebastian, so that you don't drive down a road and see, dilapidated homes, vehicles, grass that all the way up to the rooftops, things like that. Human resources is really an internal department. However, they do handle hiring as well. So they're handling everything across the board when it comes to human resources within the city. And also I want to mention human resources and finance are heavily involved in, for instance, our police union contract negotiations. City administration, that includes the city attorney, city manager, and city clerk's offices as well. So general fund expenditures by department. This is the pie graph that I referenced earlier that would kind of break it down by department a little bit better. So instead of just showing it in a bar graph, this shows you the percentages. Total general fund budget of $19.8 million. 45% of that funds police department. $8.4 million. That does not include capital. So we have a couple different funding sources that can only be used for infrastructure, land acquisition, and improvements. Those are discretionary sales tax, local option gas tax. A lot of those DSTU dollars are used for our police department when it comes to some equipment, vehicles, and software and things like that. So that's not included in this 45% number. Our total budget in police department is approaching somewhere around $10 million when you take all the other stuff into account. 45% of general fund is police, 5% is facilities maintenance, 10% is parks and recreation, 1% cemetery operations, 4% community development, non-departmental is 9%, city council is less than 1%, city manager is 3%, city clerk is 2%, city attorney 1%, finance department is 4%, MIS IT is 4%, human resources is 2%, roads and drainage 8%, and fleet management is 2%. So once again, I just want to bring it back as we're looking at this. when I talk about $19.8 million in general fund, I can't touch the 45% because the bill says we need to maintain that funding. So when I have to cut $4.7 million because that is what property tax eliminates for us, I have to take from the other 55% of this pie graph here. That's where it has to come from. So all of these departments and areas are the ones that are going to be greatly affected as we go forward. Comparison of general fund personnel cost to total expenditures. In FY 2026, we have 5.91 employees per 1,000 residents. Total general fund expenditures are 19.8 million. Personnel cost us $15.3 million of that 19.8. So when we start to look at a $4.7 million reduction, that's where we start to have to take a close look at things. And just to clarify, because this question has been asked in the other two sessions, funding levels. There's a lot of talk about, well, government is expanding, they're getting bigger. We're funding more positions. In 2006, the city of Sebastian had 7.63 employees per 1,000 residents. 7.63. In 2026, we currently have 5.97 per 1,000 residents. So as we've continued to grow, our employee per residence ratio has actually decreased since 2006. Property tax versus other sources. This is a little bit of information on why property taxes are important to the city in other factors than just funding our sources that we need. Property tax is more stable. It's more flexible, which equals less waste, can divert resources to needed areas. The key on this one is, when I say less waste, is because we can divert it to other areas. Some of our funding mechanisms, I'll use discretionary sales tax and local option gas tax because they're the two largest other funding sources that we have. The revenue that's generated from those two sources can only be used for infrastructure improvements, land acquisition, preservation work, things of that nature. They can't be used for staffing costs. So those have specific areas we can use them. Property taxes, we can use them where they best fit and are best needed within the city. So we have that availability, and it's very flexible for us. They're more predictable and budgets are more reliable. I can give you an example of local option gas tax. That has actually, we saw a reduction last year, and we budgeted a further reduction this year in the collection of local option gas tax. We know that property tax is going to come in somewhere in the range of 96 to 97% on an annual basis. So we know what that total number is. We can plug that number into the budget, and we know what that collection rate is going to be every single year within the budget. So it is a very predictable funding source for us. Hold on one second. You got to state your name and have a microphone. Yep, go ahead, state your name.
My name's Andrew. Before you mentioned that Sebastian, we're a quaint little fishing town and that a lot of people have come into the area, and that accounts for the reason why the homestead taxes are more or less double what the rest of the state is. I'm just kind of curious, what do the other areas of the state do to make up for the revenue?
So I don't want to say our homestead taxes are double that. What I mean by that is our dependency on homesteaded property taxes is double what the state average is. What they have done is they have blown up with a lot of commercial. That's an easier way. You get a lot more money from commercial real estate on property taxes than you get from a residential property. So they've got those measures in place. They also have established fees in special districts. We don't have those here in Sebastian. When I say fees, and you'll see it mentioned later as a possible revenue source that we go to in the future possibly, they charge for parking. We don't charge for parking. They charge to launch your boats at the boat ramp. We currently don't charge for that. They have specific special taxing districts in which you can charge for roadway lighting. You know, little things that kind of nickel and dime every single resident. We have not done that in Sebastian. We have had a stable property tax revenue source that has allowed us to not have to do that. And so I think that those are really the measures that you start to look at when it comes to what other places are doing. For one, they may have a lot of non-homesteaded properties. I can tell you there's other cities just in this county that their numbers of homesteaded property are greatly reduced compared to ours. Because a lot of them are second homes for people, a lot of snowbirds in those areas. And so all those things factor into, it's kind of been a worst case scenario for us here in Sebastian in regards to just how dependent we are, how much of property taxes homestead property generates. Yes, sir. Bond markets, preferred property taxes. When you go to get a loan, they want to see that you have a stable source of revenue. When you go to get a loan for yourself, when the city goes to get a loan or goes to go out for bond market, they want to see our stable revenue sources to ensure that we're going to have that revenue coming in to be able to pay those items off. Exemptions with portability, limited growth by state caps, and transparency, clear formula, and publicly set rates. I mentioned this numerous times, but I can tell you we've already started our budget process here in the city, and we do this every year on an annual basis. We start in February. We've had our first budget advisory committee meeting. We continue to have those all the way through the budget process. We have public workshops on the budget, go line item by line item in every single department for 2 full days in the summertime. And then when it gets to the end, we are statutorily required to have 2 public hearings in September as well to get us to that final millage number and adopted budget. So other sources, I mentioned a little bit, fees, they're limited to only the services provided. Assessments are limited to specific service areas. Grants, I can tell you in the city, over the last 3 years, we've applied for over $30 million in grants. We've been awarded somewhere in the range of $10 million. But those are becoming a little bit tougher to obtain. For one, I can tell you the proposed state budget currently as it's proposed reduces some of the grant opportunities that we've had in the past. Doesn't quite meet those same thresholds of funding that was available in the past. And also from a federal level, we're seeing some reduction in grant opportunities as well. But we, from a staffing level, we have committed and we are consistent in applying for grants because every grant dollar that we get helps us out with projects or things that we need to get to better the quality of life in Sebastian. Special assessments, those are restricted use to their specific uses. So if property taxes were eliminated, what are some immediate impacts? And when I say immediate, let me just kind of clarify that a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, the bill would have to pass in November of 2026, or the ballot measure, the constitutional amendment would pass in November of 2026. It would go into effect January 1st of 2027, which would then take effect in your November tax bill of 2027. So that's really when we would have to start looking at it. So we would be a year delayed from this time frame. Our upcoming budget isn't necessarily affected by these immediate impacts. However, we will start taking looks at some of these things in this year's upcoming budget, but it would affect the following year. Removal of local control and responsiveness to tax changes. You all, the closest people to you, we have, as I introduced him earlier, Mayor Fred Jones. He's here. He's in the public all the time. Councilmember Ed Dodd came in after I did introductions, but he's in the back as well. They're here. You can drive right down the street to City Hall to see them. If you have complaints about the millage rate, if you want to come to those workshops, those meetings are right here in City Hall in the city of Sebastian. You don't have to go to Tallahassee to have those meetings. You don't have to try to call Tallahassee to have those discussions. They can be had right here at City Hall. My office is here. You can come and see me anytime. Major general fund revenue loss. I've shared that numerous times in this discussion. Longer response times to citizen requests due to staffing reductions. That's just the reality of what would happen. You can call citizen requests now, you'll get an immediate response. Those things would start to be delayed. Reduce parks and recreation programs and park maintenance. You would see a reduction in that. Infrastructure maintenance delays and an increased reliance on fees or other taxes. That would just be the result of this. We would have to kind of be a little creative. We'd have to look at where areas we can cut and then also look at ways that we can generate revenue to pay for certain services that we need to get provided to our residents. So there would be fees associated with those. So where would the funds come from? There's a lot of discussion. This bill, constitutional amendment, does not have an implementing bill. There is currently no assistance from the state to make up any of the revenue that would be lost. I don't really expect that. There has been no discussion currently at the legislature in regards to sales tax, so that isn't an option. And other funding mechanisms that we've heard just are not options. It would come down to fees and specific things that we could charge for here in the city. So it would shift the burden to non-homestead and commercial properties. I talked about renters, your second homes, and then also your commercial properties for those non-homesteaded properties. Shift to special assessments on the tax bill, which limits our flexibility. However, it may be necessary. Road maintenance assessments. Currently, when your road gets paved, you don't receive an assessment for that. That would be a likely possibility as we go forward. When your road is paved, your neighborhood would receive an assessment if that was necessary to complete the funding for that. Street lighting assessments, it's currently done in other cities and counties. I know the county actually has a couple districts that they charge for street lighting assessments. That is a potential option. State funds, I mentioned that. There's really that's not an option at the current time. There's nothing in the implementation. There's no implementation bill, first off, but there's no language in the constitutional amendment. Increase fees for services and initiate new fees. These are possibilities, not saying we've really gone the pathway on these, but parking fees, boat ramp fees, and obviously increased recreational program fees. Problem with service fees also is that we can only charge what the market is going to allow us to charge. So therefore, if I have to increase fees to a certain level to be able to fund them from our city government, that level may be too high for that service. So therefore, we wouldn't get that revenue because people just are not going to accept the service and are not going to sign up for it. So key takeaways for residents. Property taxes fund core city services. The things that you see and do in this city every single day are funded by property taxes. Core services such as emergency services require consistent funding. Our police department, our police dispatch, when you call, they answer. That requires consistent funding. Homestead exemptions reduce individual tax burden. Eliminating property taxes would require service cuts or new revenue sources. And the decisions at the end of the day would involve trade-offs between taxes and service levels. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. I'll now open it up for you all if you have questions. Like I said, I'll answer any questions that you have in regards to property taxes or the presentation at the current time. Remember, just state your name. I know you've stated your name once or twice, but if you could, please.
Kimberly Warren again. Didn't they just finish passing where a permit had to be completed for a customer within like 45 days, or we have to give that money back? They're going to take our revenues away, and they're still forcing us to get all of this stuff done in a short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some preemptions. One of our revenue sources that is shown here that comes in within general fund is local business taxes. There's currently a bill that's going through legislature right now that would eliminate that funding source as well. It's a little bit of a smaller amount. I think it's in our budget about $80,000. Other municipalities, it's larger numbers. But yes, you are correct that, not only are they looking to reduce funding, but they're also trying to speed up our review processes when it comes to building permits, planning and zoning, and also looking at the potential of taking some of those abilities to control some growth away from local governments as well.
Hi, my name's Dave. I know you said it was 48% that it was for the police that we covered. I think it should be 60, but that's only me. But the other thing is, who exactly, if they got eliminated taxes, would it affect? Unless I'm misunderstanding it, wouldn't your home have to be paid for? And don't you have to be homesteaded for at least 2 years?
What I've read in the bill so far, I have not, you do not have to own your home outright. You have to be a home, you have to be a homesteaded property. I have not seen the 2-year, but I don't want to say that that's not in there. But I have not seen that anywhere in the legislation that I've read. So it would strictly be if you are a homestead property owner. From my understanding, those property taxes will be eliminated.
But if,
Non-school ad valorem.
but if you're, have a mortgage on your home, you actually don't own it, the bank owns it. So wouldn't it only affect if your home was paid for and clear?
Not according to the language, no, sir.
Okay.
Other questions? Don't be shy.
Hi, my name's Deb Schellenberger. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe right now the city gets about 20% of its budget from the state. Would that change?
So currently the city, we receive, and let me just, I've got those numbers right here for you. I just want to make sure I give you exact specifics. So when we look at state shared revenues, the city receives a total of about 3.8 or $3.9 million, and that is about 20% of general fund revenues. That includes municipal revenue sharing from sales tax, your 8-cent motor fuel tax, mobile home licenses, alcohol beverage licenses, a local half-cent sales tax, and police, and we also get they contribute a certain percentage to the police pension as well within that. So all of that kind of adds up, and we do receive that percentage. So yes, 20% of general fund is funded through those revenue sources of items that are solicited and purchased here in the county. Those funds go to the state. They then send us back our portion of that.
Any chance that they would increase that?
No, not that I'm aware of. Anyone else with questions that you'd like to ask now? All right, so that concludes our property tax workshop for today. Thank you all for coming. Like I said, I'll be here if you have any questions for after this that you want to ask. Also, I'm available anytime to come by and see me. You can also see our Chief Financial Officer, Brian Stewart, or our council members are always out and about in the community that you can speak to them as well. But we appreciate you coming out and hearing what property taxes are used for within your community. And they do, in fact, make a difference in your lives on a daily basis. So thank you.